I've been on every side of it because I've been the coach making the cuts. I've been the parent, of the athlete who didn't get the opportunities they thought they wanted, and then being the teacher or counselor and trying to sometimes help kids work through that. It is kind of tricky. I think that one of the things, what pops into my mind is when our kids were young and they were out on the playground and we knew they were going to wipe out a few times, they'd cry for a minute and then we'd pick them up and brush them off and then off they would go again. Right. And so early on, kids know that, oh, this is going to be fun. This is the risk is worth it. And I think as we get older, sometimes we start to feel like, oh, I'm not sure the risk is worth this. This hurts really bad. Right. And so I think it's just important as parents to understand that have conversations with your kids before they get involved in something like a team or let's say the school musical, something where they have to try out and there's a chance for failing. And it's probably the time in their life when it's the safest time for them to fail because they have a built-in support network, parents, family, coaches, teachers, friends, and it's not usually going to be life-changing or life-altering, or it's not going to have these long-term consequences if they don't make the basketball team now or they don't, if they're not the varsity wrestler at 152 or whatever it is. It's going to feel like it to them. And so one of the tricks that I think is important that parents can do is something that's known as front loading, where you talk with your kids ahead of time and say, listen, you're going to try out for the team. Let's talk about what could go good and what might go bad. What are we going to do if you don't make the team? How's that going to affect you? What's next after that? Because that could happen. Or what if you make the team and you're excited about it, but you're sitting on the bench? How are we going to deal with that? How can I help you deal with that? Just helping think through those scenarios ahead of time so that it kind of equips kids with some skills to be able to understand, I guess, or see that disappointment might come as a part of this process, but it's okay. Just like when I wiped out on the playground, I'm going to get up and I'll go try something else, and it's not the end of the world. Having those conversations ahead of time, I think helps prepare them for some of those scenarios so it's a little easier to deal with them as they happen. Okay, so it's all about how you frame it. This could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen. Not you. Instead of saying you might not make the team, which sends the message really of kind of like I don't believe you're going to be there. It's more of all right, you're going to try out, and if it doesn't go well and you don't make the team, that's scenario A. Scenario B, if you try out and you make the team but you're not getting to play, that's scenario B. So as long as you can show all three, I think it helps the kids see like, okay, these are my possibilities and how can we make it work? Like we can see what could happen and we could stop them and never let them go try to do anything fun. But, sometimes it's okay to just let them go do it and just kind of hold back. You're there, you're close, you're there. And, it doesn't mean you might not be there with Band-Aids in your pocket, but you're still going to let them go try something that might potentially be risky. And because I've had the same conversations. I've had a whole speech prepared in my mind to tell my kids, here's all the stuff about when they don't make it. And then they totally surprise me and do. And I'm like, well, I didn't need that speech, and I worried about things that I probably didn't need to. But I just think that idea of it's always worked best for me as a coach and as a parent when I kind of had those honest, frank discussions. This could go a few different ways. How are we going to deal with it no matter what happens? Okay, so I'm going to share an example I had just a few weeks ago where a friend of mine, a coworker, his son is on one of our football teams, and he'd been starting and was playing, and now suddenly just kind of got benched with no real explanation. And dad was upset and was ready to go marching in and talk to the coaches. And I kind of helped redirect him and say, how about you go with your son to the coach and say, listen, so I was playing and I didn't really get much feedback and now I'm not. What are some things I can work on so that I can get back on the field? And, if you go in with that mindset instead of why am I not getting to play, and so maybe, and what ended up happening, the dad didn't even go in. The son actually went and said to the coach, hey, I want to get back on the field. What are some things I can work on? Can you take a minute, show me a few things? And the coach stopped what he was doing, and it ended up being a really positive thing. And so that's the route I would go when a kiddo wants to try to say, well, the coach hates me or I'm not going to get to play. That's when you have honest conversations about, well, what are some things that maybe your weaknesses that might keep a coach from putting you on the floor or giving you that opportunity? And then it gives a chance for some self-reflection. Well, I do tend to, when the press comes on the basketball floor, I tend to just throw the ball into the bleachers. All right, well, let's work on, maybe that's something you can work on, or maybe, help the kiddo identify what are some things that they can specifically do that might give them a better chance for success. And then it takes the focus off of, well, the coach is making this decision because they don't like me. I coached for a long time. I didn't really ever meet a coach that didn't want to win. And so they're going to try to, they're going to have the reasons for putting kids out on the floor and for not. And so I think as a parent, if you can just have those conversations and be like, all right, what might keep the coach from putting you on the floor? Because I doubt it's because he doesn't like you. Then let's see what we can do about those kind of things. I think another thing you could do is you can look at it in other aspects of their life. What are you good at? Well, I'm good at math. Well, are you only good at math because your math teacher likes you? Are you only good? Is that why? Or is there some skill set that you have and that's why you're successful in that area? And it really has very little to do with that interaction. The coach probably doesn't have the emotional energy to like or dislike you because they're trying to figure out, how to get X's and O's figured out. And so, I don't know, just taking that focus off that and bringing some ownership to your kiddo, I think can help them then feel like I have some control in this matter. And doesn't guarantee success, but obviously I feel like it just changes the approach and the look of things. Yeah, that's tough because, you get emotionally involved as a parent, and obviously the coach is emotionally involved. And so you're trying to find a way to be helpful and not be overbearing. The problem with constant correction is that it eliminates a safe space for your kiddo to just kind of be away from the game, so to speak. If the whole ride home from the game or the tournament is just constantly replaying that whole thing and it's led by the parents, I feel like it just kind of, the kiddos just kind of sink further and further in and like, well, I don't have a safe space just to get away from that for a minute. So I think it's important to just, first of all, check your own emotions, see where you're at, and then decide, is this the time and the place for this? And usually right after the game or recently, it's not, right? It's not unless they approach you. Our daughter just finished a golf season, and golf is a crazy game with highs and lows, and you love it and you hate it. And at the end of usually when they would play tournaments, it'd be a 2-day tournament. And so they'd play 18 holes and they're going to turn around the next day and do 18 more. And so, I would usually just watch for 2 or 3 things, but then I would ask my daughter at the end of the round, do you want to talk about these now? I noticed a couple things that might help you tomorrow, or do you want to talk about it later? And I just said it that way instead of just going right in with, well, I noticed that, man, every time you hit your irons, it's going way off to the right. That's not going to, she already knows where that golf ball was going. And so, just kind of looking at it like that. Another thing that I think could be valuable is before the competition happens, talk to your kiddo about a few goals they might have or specific things that you can watch for. And I think this can work for a coach or for a parent because you're going to be watching. And if you separate the emotions from it, so you're way ahead of it, again, front loading and say, look, give me 2 things that you want to try to improve on right now or this week or at this game. And then I'll watch for those specifically. And then when I notice that there's something I can help you with, that's what I'll give you feedback on. And then instead of the coach being like, you're not doing this, or the parent saying, how come this, you're going back to what the student athlete said. These are things I've recognized in myself I want to work. And now I'm just helping them improve on their skills based on their goals, not on what my expectations are. Now, I might have an expectation for them, or I might think that there are things that they need to do. And maybe I can work the conversation to get around, but well, what about this for a goal? Here's some things I've noticed. But anytime you can get ahead of it and then make it feel like, this is their idea, their focus, then I feel like you're going to have more success with that feedback. And it doesn't come across as criticism or constant correction because I'm just giving you feedback on the things that you said you wanted me to watch. Yeah, that's tricky because, when something is, I don't know, I was talking to Megan about this a little bit earlier. Back when we were youth, if you played a ball game and the team lost, it was a newspaper article, maybe the next day, a small write-up about it, and it was kind of gone a day or 2 after that. And now, you post something, and if it didn't go well, a year from now, here comes a reminder. 1 year ago today, you failed. And then 7 years ago today, you failed, and that's and so I think that, I think what parents can do is just reframe how kids use social media. The timing again, wait, maybe wait until it's not so emotional. I'll go back to my daughter with her golf season again that she just finished. I mean, it's very high pressure and very stressful. And when she got to the end of the season, it didn't quite go the way she wanted. She had a great year, but she was a little disappointed. And I was kind of waiting to watch and see if she would post anything on social media. 2 weeks later, here comes some pictures. Man, I had a great golf season. I loved being with my teammates. It was tough, but I loved it. So it was about timing. So I think that with enough time, you can help your kids frame and notice the progress you've made. I mean, you could say, well, last year I was on the bench, and this year I'm getting to play and contribute, and sure been fun to be part of this. And so by kind of maybe giving some time, like you just talked about a minute ago, then I think that can help kids, especially when it comes to social media. If it's going to be permanent, let's make it a positive permanent. Let's point out the good things, right? Instead of we don't need one more reason to be reminded that, oh no, oh dang, that was a failure or whatever. And maybe over time we can learn to laugh at it, but sometimes those things hurt pretty bad. And so, I would say do everything you can. If you're going to post stuff, make it positive post and positive permanent, and focus on the good. And I think that's one direction we can probably take our kids, and lead out as parents. Take a picture with your kids at the end of the game and say, man, we sure had fun watching our kid. We just loved seeing her growth and seeing her interactions with her teammates. And we're grateful for the community and the support. Turn it into a positive thing. Doesn't mean it was all, roses, right? But it's still, you can still focus on the good. And then if that's what you're going to post, I don't know. I just think then when you're reminded of it later, it might be a good thing. When I was a teenager, I was a river guide at a Scout High Adventure base. And we were going to basically take people on a 3-day whitewater kayaking trip. And most of these people had never been in a kayak or didn't really hadn't had much experience with that. So day one, we show them how when they tip over, because you're going to tip over, here's how you get out of the boat and swim to shore. And then we take them down a 7-mile stretch that was very pretty easy, a few waves, and we paddled right through the middle of the waves, and they'd follow us. And if they tip over, okay, you did it, great. The next day, it was a 7-mile stretch with more difficult rapids. And they still kind of are learning, and sometimes they tip over, and now they get better. Day 3, I mean, it was some big whitewater, and they had the choice to either kayak through it or they could get in a raft if they didn't feel confident. But what we would do is in the first set of rapids, we would kind of strategically place guides. Like I would paddle down and stop in an eddy right behind a rock. And then my buddy would be down 50 feet further downstream on the other side of the river. And through this first set of rapids, it was probably 200 yards long. There might be 5 or 6 guides there. And as the kids would come by, we know half of them are going to wipe out. But as they're coming through, we're like, you got this. Paddle, paddle, paddle. You got this. We're there to paddle in if and when they tip over. But they've taken the steps along the way to gain this confidence and to realize, oh, I can do this now. And I trust that what I've learned and these guys are here for me. And they're also here to help rescue me if need be. But we never paddled out in front of them and said, oh, follow me. You have to do it exactly like this. Or we didn't say, no, you can't do this. Because it gives you an opportunity to learn and grow when you go through something difficult. It's the only way you're going to build resilience and grit is if you fail. But you want to fail with somebody there. As parents and coaches, we're there to be your biggest fans and supporters. We've helped prepare you for this moment, and now you got it. And when you tip over and have to swim through the rapids and smack a few rocks, it's okay. We're going to get to the bottom. You're going to get back in your boat because we got 6 more miles to go. There's no way out but get to the bottom. And I just think it was a kind of a good, as I've gotten older, I've gained the kind of, I guess, the appreciation for the wisdom in that approach. And I've seen how that kind of approach can really be valuable as kids go into difficult and scary situations. Well, it's kind of tricky, but the thing about superheroes what makes them a superhero is they're resourceful. Like they have something that they can do or something they can give that's going to save the day. And so, when you look at, and so our kids, they're superheroes in training, right? So what we got to do is we've got to take the resources we have and what we know and try to be ready to provide those things and to help. But, if I've saved you, if you watch the superhero movies, if they save someone from a burning building, they're going to set them on the ground and then they're going to be like, okay, now you go help those people down there, right? You take what I just showed you. Now you go use what skills you have and you go kind of make a difference. So, I mean, there's a difference between a superhero who might come in and just, like stop the danger and no one ever is hurt. That would not work. And as a parent, if you're a helicopter parent, then instead of teaching kids how to use their resources, you're like, I'm the only one who can do this. If you're over the top on that, instead of helping them see, like, look, you can do this and you've been taught to do this and this is going to be hard, but you can do this as well. I think that that's more valuable, is try to find a way to help instill in them this belief that, oh, you have these skills. You've seen me do it. I know you've been taught this. You got this. You're going to get some bumps and bruises along the way, but I'm always here. I'm always here to come flying in if you need. I'll be here to save you as much as I think is good for you. But along the way, yeah, you're learning to be your own superhero. That's what we want, right?